Hello everyone, today I want to share with you why I've decided to use Explode the Code to teach my first grader and second grader more about the fundamentals of reading. Before I actually show you inside these books, I wanted to share with you briefly my experience as a first time homeschooling mom, what it was like for me to figure out how to teach my daughter how to read, and also how different it's been trying to teach my son how to read. And so I remember just, I guess, 2 years ago, I had just discovered homeschooling moms in YouTube, and I really regretted not knowing that there was so much information out there, even how to prepare your kids as like babies at months old, and already you can teach them these important motor skills and like learning their alphabet. So I pretty much just kind of try to teach them with games, just your typical games. You buy them those like ABC little games where they become familiar with the ABCs, and you try to teach them that way, or videos, just YouTube videos where they sing the alphabet. And so that was kind of my approach. So when I discovered these YouTube videos, I came across one that was of a mom, homeschooling mom, that was showing how she taught her kids how to read. And I just remember thinking, I felt like this is hard. I never realized how a person is supposed to teach another person how to read. I just felt like, wow, that's kind of a big goal for just someone that's never done that before. And so it was really helpful to see another mom show how she taught her kids. So this is kind of like my video showing other moms my experience as well. As an inexperienced person, it was my first child I was about to teach, and we didn't really go to any classes prior, kind of modeling how to teach reading and things like that. So I took some of the advice of that video. The first thing was you write down the ABCs on flashcards, and so that's the first thing you're going to teach your children, to associate the sound with the letter. So we would go through that for many months until there was also a video I would show them, so they would hear it and see the letter. And there's a lot of those on YouTube where you can do that. But I felt like when you actually show your child a flashcard, it actually makes them have to think for themselves, as opposed to a video that already gives them the answer and they don't have to think too much about it. Maybe they're just going based off of like memorization from the video, like the order. So I would, once they started to learn the letter sound, them the letter and the sound being the same, I started to mix them up, and then that challenged them even more. So they weren't just going based off of memorization. I remember seeing that in their little faces as they expected the next letter sound, but now they had another letter, so they really had to think through that. So we would just go through it like and then all of a sudden an M would be next. So then we would do and so forth. So once my daughter mastered that, there was on that video there was the suggestion of having like this huge list of blended blended sounds. And I did that, but I found it very confusing for my child and overwhelming, because I wrote it on a poster board, all the blending sounds. And and so it was kind of hard, like stay focused over here, you know, and overwhelming. So I decided to just begin the Bob books. If you're familiar with the Bob books, you can find them on Amazon or on any homeschooling, I guess, website that sells books. So that was really helpful. Well, I feel like it was that and a combination of the curriculum I used. I used a lot of books that really had them thinking about the letter sound and writing it down, which was one of those was the getting ready for the code. And so these are like starting at level 1, but there are some books A, B, C that are preparing them for this level. I have an example here. This is the one my son is well, he completed this one. I think this was the last part of the Go for the Code B book. And I actually teared them out because at the time I had this approach where I wanted to just give him one page at a time so that he wouldn't want to like do too many pages, because sometimes he does feel like doing many pages, and sometimes he might not want to do one page. He might want to do the next one. So for that reason, I decided to take him out. Now we don't have that problem, so it's fine just keeping the pages in the book. But so here, let me see if you can see. They have activities where, for example, it says color or mark the one that is different. So here it shows them how to write a letter. This is an activity where you're supposed to say put your pencil on H and follow the path to the picture and try not to cross any lines. So there's a lot of other things going on besides teaching them to read. But for example, I believe on the first book, you actually had to say the sound. So I just continued doing that. So you would have to say the sound until you reached there. And then, so you're just learning to identify from other letters that look the same. And then my kids loved the test that the first books had. I'm not sure the upper level have tests anymore, but they love these tests. And you read to them and they have to, like for example here, I'll read the first one. I am thinking of something that tastes good. It has a bun around it and is fun to eat at a baseball game. What is it? And then your child is supposed to figure out which of the pictures it is, and they're supposed to say hot dog. And then you keep reading. Put your finger on the hot dog. What sound does hot dog begin with? And your child says, and then draw a box around the hot dog. So it teaches them to think of the sound and also to follow directions. So it sharpens their listening skills. And just different activities. And I thought, well, this seems kind of basic, so maybe it's not necessary. Maybe I can go without it and just find other curriculum books that are already teaching this. So I kind of, I had decided not to pursue the higher levels of Explode the Code. So before I go further into that, let me just finish up how I taught my daughter to read. So we went through the Bob books, and so if my daughter struggled with some of the words, the next day we would go over the same book again until I felt confident. Okay, she was able to figure out how to read that word, and we're good. So let's move on, because each book gets a little more challenging. So you do not want to just, oh, she didn't figure that out, let's move on to the next one, because it'll just be harder each time because she didn't master it. So along the way, I decided to do an activity where it's more hands-on. And at the time, I didn't really feel like spending a lot of money on things. So I thought, okay, let me use water bottle caps. We have this Alpha Phonics book where my children are learning their phonics. And we are on lesson 2 so far, but we are reviewing lesson 1 also.
5, 6, 7.
And these are the phonic sounds that my children are learning. So all we did was make these letters like this. And we have our vowel here. And so, Sadie, what does this say? Okay, what does the next one say? Sorry, start here. Good. And we go like that for all of them. And then if you look at lesson 2, right here, for example, now it starts to form 3-letter words. And we can use the same ones. So this is actually another fun way to do it. Sadie, can you spell the name Sam?
Oh, Sam, coming up. This is S-A and Sam.
What's the last letter? That's right. I also wanted to show you how you could pair this fun game with this book as well as this book. Sadie, can you spell the name Matt?
Okay, Matt.
Okay, good job, Matt. Okay, let's find another word in here.
Well, this is page 5.
Yes. Sadie already spelled Sam, right? Sadie, can you spell Sat?
Sat is always what I mean. Sat. S.
She can read the book already, but this is a good way to for her to physically interact with the word.
Sam.
So the first letter, Jeremiah? Is the first letter. Good. Now the second letter is going to be Very good. Okay. So one of the flashcards had 2 circles on it for if they wanted to form a 2-letter word. Or I gave them another flashcard that had 3 circles in case it was a word that had 3 letters. That was an activity where, for example, I would say spell man, and then I would kind of do this with my hand. And so now we knew, okay, it's a 3-letter or 3-letter word. So they get their flashcard with the 3 circles. That was first step. And then, okay, now what's the first sound? I think I wrote 1, 2, 3 under each circle because sometimes a child doesn't understand what side is the first. So sometimes they might spell a word backwards because they don't know. You start on the left side, you know? So then we would go, okay, and then they would have to find it. And it's so cute because they're like, and they're looking for it. And then, and then they find it. And then as extra, I would say, okay, once you have your letters, go to the whiteboard and spell it. So then they would go spell it. And then we would do that with all of the spelling words. And eventually I would do that enough times so that they would be able to have a spelling test. And usually they didn't need the letter caps anymore. They were able to just figure it out by saying like man, you know, with their mouth, because I think it helped them associate a sound with a letter. as opposed to just hearing spell man. Like they really have to figure out each sound before they're able to just understand it that way. So that was how my daughter was able to learn how to read. And my son went along through that process, but he is 1.5 years younger than my daughter. So technically he began kindergarten about half a year earlier than where my daughter was at. So my daughter was like half a year older technically. So my son is just getting there. He's in kindergarten, but I noticed he's just getting there. And so it makes sense that now reading is clicking, whereas in the beginning it wasn't clicking as easily as with my daughter. So although we had already gone through learning the phonics sounds, those flashcards in the beginning, those sounds, I noticed when we started trying to read the Bob books or even the Alpha Phonics book, it was like it wasn't clicking the sound with the letter, and it was almost like he was just guessing based off of pictures or memorization, and it was frustrating for him and me too because I didn't understand what's going on. So we ended up having to take some steps back, and I have this little game where it has all the ABCs. It's like wooden blocks of ABCs, and so that's what we ended up doing. Okay, let's go over all of these letters, and it's fun. It seemed like a fun thing for him because it's a toy, right? So after we would go through all the sounds again. This time I didn't use flashcards. This time I used letters. We'd go a, b, k, d, e, until he memorized it all again. And then I would say, okay, spell am. So he would get the letters and he would spell it. Okay, spell Sam. So whenever we would come across a word that he didn't know how to read it, we would just, at the end of that book, we would go over that word until he was able to, and then we would move on to the next Bob book. And now it's not a problem. Now he gets it, and he's able to do more of the lesson, whereas before he just didn't even want to do one tiny section because he found it very frustrating. So I also found, I think it's Netflix, I'm not sure, Alpha Blocks, and that's a fun little show. I think that's helpful too, and because I noticed they have the same show for math, and wow, did that help my kids like figure out some math problems. So I thought, okay, well, if it's really helpful with math, let me do it with reading. And so from time to time I put that, but those are the resources. And also I realized, hey, these seemingly unimportant books, unnecessary books, they're actually really important for reinforcing those things that you might think, well, they learned it already, but it needs to be like constantly repeated and reminded so that it makes spelling easier. So we're going to the next book, which is C for him, because we had paused doing some of those activities because I thought it wasn't necessary. So I bought the one for first grade. Well, I guess you don't have to be, like if you're a first grader, it doesn't mean you can't be on book 2. It's at your own pace, right? But I bought this one for when he's in first grade. And it comes with a teacher's manual. And what I'm finding is that you can probably just do these activities without the teacher's manual. But especially the ABC books. I didn't really feel like I needed it, but for these, I find that it's good. The lessons, and it's all reinforcing and making your child think through sounds and spelling. So I have the teacher's manuals, and I like going through them. With my daughter's currently going through this book. It's nice that it has a consonant pretest to make sure that your child is fluent in figuring out like what the sound with the letter. Then the book has lesson 1. So then when it says lesson, a new lesson, I go through the teacher's manual and we go through that. I like to go through the whole thing, and then we just do the lesson. And they are easy activities to do very quickly, and I like that it has a lot, because I like to have my daughter, okay, read all of the words to me, so I can make sure that she has extra reading practice. What I like about this too is that it gives them a lot of writing practice, and it reinforces the correct order for writing letters, because apparently kids can come up with many different ways of writing a letter, and so that's important to teach them also. It has like kind of like what I was teaching them, where you figure out each of the letters, and you have to well, here they give them to you, so you're just writing them down, but you become familiar with the word and circle which one it is. And then here they actually give you just a picture, and then you have to figure out how to spell it. So that's a nice practice. I think that would have been a little difficult if I didn't give them that prior practice, hands-on practice. They can choose which word belongs where, more writing practice, and they have to identify the word with the picture. Here, more reading, and they have to figure out which one describes the picture. And here, on this one, they write down what the word was. And also, if you want, you can have them do it 2 times, maybe even 3 times, depending on how much practice you want. Okay, so that's pretty much what you'll find on book 1. Now, something that I didn't realize is that they sell book 1.5, which is extra practice, phonics review and reinforcement. I purchased it late, so we're kind of just speeding through it, and it has similar activities, but the fun thing that I found is that they have an activity where they have to sort the words and write the sentence. So that's kind of fun. It's teaching my daughter to think through all of the words and where they need to be placed to make a sentence. So I like that. And again, I feel like the more practice they have with writing and reading and remembering the phonic sounds, the easier it'll be to read books. Reading is not fun if you struggle figuring out how to read certain words. So I think it's very important to spend extra time making sure that your child does have that phonics, has mastered phonics. And so the harder the books get, they'll have those skills to figure out the words that they're not familiar with. And it won't be like a harder experience than it has to be. So that's why I decided to stick with this. I saw that my son could really benefit remembering the sounds, the letters, and so we decided we're going to go through these, and it shows here that they have up until 6.5 the level. And let's see, let me show you book 2. And here behind this one, it shows that it has up until level 8. I wonder if they, yeah, see, it just has 6.5 even on this. Okay, so let's look at book 2. Seems that they're going to focus on blends. So yeah, since I decided not to go through all of that long list of teaching them the blends, I feel like this is a replacement for that approach. So they're learning about the blends on this book. So let me just show you. So the picture is a clown, and they have to figure out which of those blends begins the word. So clown, they're going to circle CL. And they have pretty much the same activities, except now the words are bigger. This is the first time I'm looking through this book 2. And they're going to give you words that are similar, and you have to be able to read it correctly and figure out which one is the correct. Here it looks like they have more words now on this page activity. It's exciting to witness how your kids are growing in their education. It's exciting for me. It's fun. Look at this. Now it's not just one word, but now there are blends. So you have to figure out the blends. They changed this activity word. Now it's yes, no. Can a black bat dig? But here they have same type of activities. This one also bigger words. And that's it. So that's book 2. And let's look at the reinforcement 2.5 book. It seems that it's the same activities, except see, this page looks a little different. Yeah, so I would say it's pretty much the same, but more challenging. Alright guys, so as far as kindergarten, first grade and second grade go, based off of my experience with my kids, I think it's definitely a good idea to get these, and it's nice that they're not expensive. I like that, and it's good practice. You might not have to figure out so many writing activities on your own because they're already getting writing practice in these books, a lot of reading practice, and like I said, it would be like a bad thing for you to have put all that work into kindergarten and then they completely forget all about it in first grade or second grade and they're struggling. So I feel like definitely do it kindergarten, first and second grade, and then reevaluate, if you can find other things to replace it. I'm not there yet, but that's what I would say so far. My experience has been, and that's how I have been able to teach my kids to read. And I hope you found this video helpful and that you're excited to teach your kids how to read also. My one piece of advice for anyone that maybe you did teach your kids to read, but they're still struggling and they don't like to read it, I would just say not to feel frustrated, not to take it personal that you've done everything right and they're still not learning, or they're just having terrible behavior, and take a step back and maybe realize that they're really struggling to understand something, and that's the way that they deal with it, by like not wanting to read, by not wanting to do the full activity, the full lesson. They don't like reading because it's hard. So don't be afraid to take a few steps back. Go back to the basics, and don't jump to doing something difficult just because you think that your child should be at that level. Make sure that they get it and they'll catch up soon enough. I did that with my son, and if I wouldn't have done that, we probably would have been way behind, as opposed to how he learned it, and then all of a sudden we're able to do the lessons like amazingly faster and with a better like behavior and attitude, as opposed to when he was like really struggling to understand certain things. Your child might not know how to actually tell you, I didn't understand what you taught me, you know? So you have to like try to figure out their behavior, what's really going on. So keep going, mama, and you're doing a great job. I'll talk to you on the next video. Bye.
Sin ti, Jesús.